see. Okay. Well, I do want to go ahead and get started because we don't have that long together. I know you have things to do. Some people are preparing to go on trips to celebrate the new year, which is wonderful. And some of you just have some things you need to do before you start work tomorrow. So I actually just undecorated my Christmas tree for the first time, which if any of you know me, that's a really, really big deal to get it undecorated on January the 1st. Usually it's up till about February. Confession. But this year something changed with me, and I had a friend who helped me organize my Christmas decorations. So it's always been a little overwhelming to me to step into my storage room and to look at all the different things that I have in there. I store my business test kits and all kind of things left over from when I was doing a lot of baking for the farmers market. And I store our little farmers' Christmas gifts. Don't tell them that. And then all of our Christmas decorations, extra clothes, wrapping paper, all kind of things. And it's always just been a jumble. So this year I called my friend Rachel, who's a professional organizer. And I said, Rachel, I've got to have some help. This is really embarrassing, but this room is a jumble. I've not really done anything with it since last December. And I just kind of shoved my Christmas decorations in, and things were balanced precariously on some box lids. So I swallowed my pride and said, okay, I need some help. And so she came in and we spent 2 hours together. And when I walked out of that room, I don't know how many bags I hauled off to Goodwill and to the dump, and the room was pristine. And I was so relieved because I told her this year, I don't mind getting out my Christmas decorations because I know where they're going. And, she helped me sift through the things that were so sentimental that I didn't want to get rid of. And she's like, Bethany, really, do you need those 3 bridesmaids dresses from your sisters from 10 years ago now? So I have room in there. I have space. And so when I put my Christmas decorations back today, I felt so much better. So I tell you that little story just to kind of give you a little glimpse into something I'll bring in a little bit later on. But sometimes it's just so nice to have somebody else to help us out with something that we just dread. But I did want to go ahead and tell you a story today. And I thought through all the stories that I had heard from this past year from so many different women. And there are so many people that I would like to highlight, and I will get to those stories. But I think there's time to tell a story that I've been wanting to share for a long time, but not quite sure the platform. So there are a lot of friendly places and faces today joining me. And I think it's time for me to go ahead and share my own story, my own health story that I have rewritten in this past year. This past Christmas in January, I got and hit a point in my health, which was a very low point of my life. Many of you know that I have 4 children, and they were born within about 5 years of each other. So I had pregnancies and breastfeeding very close together. And that took a huge toll on my body. My last baby was born, and I don't think he slept through the night till he was about 19 months old. He was up all the time, very fretful, and I was exhausted. I felt very irritable. I would get really shaky. My blood sugar would go low. And besides that, I had gained and not lost 15 pounds since he had been born. So I was battling with weight, and I was kind of embarrassed about that because I'm a dietitian. I'm doing everything that's right. I don't know what's going on with my body. I can't figure this out. And I started thinking, I wonder if it's my thyroid. I wonder if I have thyroid issues going on. So this time last year, I was actually teaching a class to some women. Some of you actually might have been there, called Real Nutrition, Real Health for Real Life. And during that time, I was digging through a lot of information, trying to figure out what's going on with me. I'm trying to help clients, but I can't figure out what's going on with my own body. And I was really sure that I had a thyroid issue. So I had some testing done and went and saw some professionals, and turns out I didn't have a thyroid issue. I was having a lot of problems with low blood sugar, and I was actually, it was found that I have prediabetes, and I was blown away by that to see the number of my hemoglobin A1C, which is really a test to show you what your blood sugar has been like over the past 3 months. That was high. For me, that was a shock because I've always gone so low with my blood glucose. Actually, one time I almost passed out with when I was pregnant with my second child, and my blood sugar just plummeted. And so I was really surprised to find that out and started digging for some more information about why that's happening. Why am I having issues? And also learned at the time that I was very, very low in many nutrients in my body. So a lot of my vitamins and minerals had been depleted because of, one, so many babies, and breastfeeding. That takes a big toll on your body. And two, a lot of stress. Raising 4 little children was very stressful to me. And so a lot of my vitamins were low because of that. And then I also, embarrassingly enough, I had a lot of digestive issues, and I was actually not absorbing all of my nutrients. I didn't realize how bad my intestinal system was messed up until after I started going through my own program that I have designed for other people. And I thought, oh my goodness, I was pretty messed up. So I worked on some steps and worked through some things that brought me to a place where I was no longer dragging myself out of bed in the morning. I told my husband, sometimes I just don't want to get out of bed. I don't feel like I can face another day. I'm so exhausted. Or I'd get hit 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I would have to take a 2-hour nap to even be able to function. And I couldn't attend to my house. I couldn't attend to my children very well. And it was wintertime, so it kind of felt a little blue as well. I don't ever know if I've hit the point of like fully feeling completely depressed, but I was very down and still trying to keep myself motivated. I was actually also very short of breath sometimes, which was odd to me. I had some testing done at Vanderbilt even, and I thought maybe I've got a pulmonary problem, whatever. They couldn't even figure it out. And finally, they just said, I think it's probably related to stress. So after I'd done all the breathing tests and those types of things, that was their diagnosis. Nothing else was really wrong. But I thought, I know something's wrong. I can't even breathe sometimes. So what's happening? About 6 weeks after I started putting myself in my own program, I kind of did a reassessment of what was going on. And I thought, you know what? These past 6 weeks, I have not, after I kind of get over a hump, I haven't needed a nap, and I have so much energy. And you know what? I really don't mind facing the dishes in the kitchen at the end of the day after I've cooked. And I really feel a lot more calm with my children, and I'm not anxious. I'm not anxious about things like, what's somebody going to say when I call and talk to them on the phone and see if they want to work with me. Those kind of things that would really stop me in my tracks and really prevent me from going forward and making big decisions. I was very indecisive as well. So I'm not completely, I want to say I've done a complete 180, but my health is certainly much further along than I thought it would be. My symptoms went down from a score of 120, I think, to about a score of 20. So 100 points down was a big, big deal for me. And it's been something I realized that was the start of rewriting my own health story. Some of it I'd kind of given into because I thought, well, you know what, my grandmother went down this path. My mom is, her health is in a certain way. I'm probably just going to, maybe it's just the way I'm wired to be. Those are my genetics, and I don't know if I can really get over it. So that's something I've learned about myself, is that genes have a big part to play in who we are in our health, but they're not the final word. And really, we don't need to succumb to that and just think that, well, it's just the way it's going to be. I've learned that our genes and our genetics really help set the stage, but they don't put the play into motion. We're the one in our environment that helps to make things happen, and we can have a say-so in our health. So I want to bring you a breath of encouragement and hope that you aren't stuck with the cards that you've been dealt with your health. And some of you are maybe facing some pretty big health decisions and conditions right now. Some of you much more than what I've faced. And some of you have already started rewriting your health story in the past few months, and you're just needing a little boost to kind of help you on your way. You've made some big decisions to turn things around. And some of you I've worked with personally, and some of you I'm actually looking forward to working with in the future. But together in community, we can do this. We can rewrite our health stories. And the Lord, I believe, has designed our bodies amazingly. So I really enjoy digging deep into the science and biochemistry of things. And from that, I've learned that there are just some basic things that if we don't have for our bodies, we're going to think we have health conditions that are really big and complicated. But when it really boils down to it, it might be I want to say simple, but in some ways a very simple nutrient deficiency. Sometimes we're low in certain vitamins or minerals that help us build things like neurotransmitters, which can affect our sleep and our mood, or they may affect our digestion and how we're feeling internally. Or there may be certain foods that are really disagreeing with our body. Our body's fighting against those. And because of that, we're not able to digest our foods. We're not able to balance our hormones. Our blood sugar levels are all over the place. And when we can address those things, that helps the rest of our body kind of settle down and tend to itself. So I told you I'd talk about 5 actionable steps that you can do today to start rewriting your health story. I was trying to think through how would I prioritize that? I had to put a number on it because I felt like I could talk for a long time, and we will in the future. We'll do some more things like this. But I wanted to kind of give you 5 specific things. Let's look into 5 things that you can do this new year instead of just saying I need to try harder, because trying harder, if we could have tried harder, we would have already done it by now and it already would have worked. Trying harder really is not the answer. And sometimes we need to stop trying, actually, even because it's making it worse and it's stressing us out. So here are a few things that I wrote down and wanted to focus on today. The first thing is that we need to rest. Now, when we think of rest, I will say, obviously, sleep. Sleep is very important. It's important to prioritize sleep in your life. Now, I'm preaching to myself here because over the holidays, my farmer and I've kind of taken a break. We've enjoyed time together at nighttime without the kids, just doing projects, or he's working on a tractor, or I'm writing something, and kind of finally having a chance to chill at night. But when we don't get enough sleep, when we don't prioritize those 8 hours, everything else can kind of be thrown off balance, because sleep is the time when our body restores itself. It's when we become more balanced. And some of you have trouble sleeping. I understand that. Sleep is something that you wish you could enjoy. You would just grasp at getting a good night's sleep. But some of you are making a decision, I'm going to stay on my computer for a little bit longer, or I'm going to get a few more hours of work in at nighttime, or you're just not really doing anything very important. It's just, you just don't go to sleep. But the hours of darkness that we have are very important for us, for our body to kind of reset the circadian rhythm. So I will challenge you to move your bedtime back 15 minutes every night until you get to a point where you wake up in the morning and say, I feel great. If you have trouble sleeping at night, let's talk about a few things that may be lending to that. One thing is that you may be low in magnesium. Sometimes there are certain forms of magnesium that we need to help our body get a good night's sleep, and they can rest and they can relax us. So I'll send out an email following after this to let you know what are the certain types of magnesium that I recommend and what would be a safe dose even without testing that. Some of you are looking at blue light, which is the light that's emitted from your electronic devices, too close to bedtime. So maybe take an hour before you go to bed and just shut that off. Pick up a good book instead. I told you I love a good story. Find a book that you really enjoy, fiction or nonfiction, and use that for the last hour of daylight, or do some writing or something that doesn't involve electronics, or take a shower or a bath, or just soak your feet in some Epsom salt, or spend some time connected with people you love right before bedtime. Maybe you even have a friend that you call, or a sister you can talk to for a few minutes every night or every couple of nights, so that you're actually connecting with somebody. That brings me to my next point of connection. And building meaningful connections with people is very important to our health. And that's not always something we think about as a healthy thing, but talking to someone face to face is very, very important. It actually releases some endorphins and some feel-good hormones in our body that improve our mood, and they help us feel appreciated and loved, and we're not as apt to reach for maybe that second piece of cake or a glass of wine at the end of the night if we feel like we've had time to connect with someone else. So I challenge you to connect with somebody, if it's over the phone or face-to-face, getting together with a friend for lunch or brunch or a cup of tea. And maybe if you're married, that means spending more intentional time with your husband. And I'm going to be very honest that physical touch and intimate touch is something that is very important for our health. And there are a lot of studies that are even done with that. That's important for healing and for releasing those hormones that can can nourish our brains and excuse me, and help us build health. Excuse me just a moment. And that brings me to our next point of nourishing our bodies. I told you I wasn't going to talk about counting calories, and I'm not. But I do want to talk about nourishing your body because for a long time, even as a dietitian, I really thought about food more as something that I tried to avoid, and calories something to be scorned, instead of food as a gift to nourish our bodies and give us what we need to find strength and health. Food is not something that we should fear. And even when I'm working with people on a very specified elimination diet, which I do, I work with that with food sensitivities. My goal is always to move someone from a place of more defined elimination for a while to a place of wholesome abundance, something they enjoy, for them to find food that they like, that nourishes their bodies, it gives them the vitamins, the minerals, and the nutrients that they need. And food also is meant to be enjoyed in the context of community. So I find that a lot of times, this day and age especially, we don't really dine. We just eat. We just consume. And that's a lot different from dining. Maybe we're stuffing down a sandwich in the car on the way to our next appointment, or we're like finishing up the last bit of something in a bowl over the sink, instead of actually setting the table and sitting down and just relaxing with people we know and love, or even if we live alone, intentionally eating, not in front of our computer, but just eating and thinking about what we eat and being present there while we are eating. I think for centuries and millennium, actually, people had food as a common interest. It was a community affair, and now we're so much more in isolation than ever before. And food is just sometimes seen as something we have to do to get us enough energy to go to the next task, versus something that in itself should be enjoyable. It should bring us pleasure and should connect us with other people. So find some time to connect with someone else over a meal in this next week. See how you like it. Maybe make it a once a week intention to connect with somebody that you wouldn't normally over a meal. Invite them into your home, or maybe host them at a restaurant, or just for a cup of tea. It doesn't have to be something fancy, but connecting with other people is very important. One of the next things I will bring up is creating. Creating is something that we were made to do. We were made to create beauty and order in the world around us. I say this as a Christian because I believe that God has specifically given women a love of creating beauty and appreciating beauty. And I think He's given each of you very unique ways to do that. Some people are amazing decorators. Some are wonderful organizers. Some people have gifts in accounting or cooking and painting or music. You each have your own skills. But maybe it's time to rediscover something that you've loved in the past, or maybe find a new pastime to enjoy. And spend 15 minutes a day pursuing something that you really, really like. And maybe it's appreciating something that's beautiful. Maybe it's just listening to some beautiful music or enjoying some art. But take a little bit to soak in that beauty every day. That's very, very important for your health as well. You release hormones as well when you're doing something you love. So find a chance to do that. Maybe find somebody else to connect with this next year that he will join you in that. A friend, a sister, coworker, spouse. And say, hey, you want to try something new? This past year, my farmer took a class in stained glass. And he and I intended to try some stained glass together, and we still do. We still appreciate looking at that. We realized it was going to be a little bit more involved than we thought it had been, but that's something we still want to do together, and I would like to pursue a little bit further. So I'm hoping in this next year we might have some creations to share just for the fun of it. And then the last thing I would urge you to do when you're trying to rewrite your health story is to discover. I want you to ask questions, and I want you to try to discover what is going on with my body. For some of you, that may mean that you need to keep a list or a record or a journal or a log of what's going on with you instead of just trying to remember it, which is hard for me sometimes, of what happened when. You may be able to start noticing some patterns of what's happening with your health. For instance, maybe you realize that every time you drink this certain type of coffee or you eat this certain fruit, that you just feel sleepy afterwards. Or maybe you realize it causes you a lot of digestive issues. Start to try to kind of keep track of maybe your symptoms, how you're feeling, keep track of how well you're sleeping at night. And maybe you'll be able to discover some clues in that. The other thing is that I would urge you to discover your numbers, which mean, when I say numbers, I mean your labs. So when you go get your annual physical this year, which I would urge everyone to get an annual physical, especially if your insurance covers it, go get a physical. Some of those numbers are going to be very helpful. Some of them are basic, but they'll start to give you a little bit of a clue of what's going on. And I want you to get those labs from your doctor and have them in hand yourself, not just say, oh, he checked them, they're fine, but do a little reading yourself. See if you notice anything that seems a little interesting, and ask questions when you're not sure, when you need clarification. Say, hey, what does this mean here? For some of these things, I wouldn't have known anything unless I had started asking some further questions about my health. And a lot of times, nothing against them, but doctors or medical professionals will just say, oh, I think they're fine. Your labs are within normal limits. But instead of being within normal limits, let's get to the point where your numbers are optimal. They're where you need to be for building health, not just avoiding disease. And that's the goal of things. So I would urge you to know your numbers. And then some of you may need to ask for help. You may need a guide in this, just like I had to ask my friend Rachel to help me clear out my whole storage room so I could get ready for Christmas. I think it was something I could have done on my own, over a course of about 10 years, probably, honestly. But it was a lot of help to have somebody else walk me through that. And I realized that Rachel has a perspective on things that I don't have. That's just not my gift. So some of you may need to ask for a little bit of help, a little guidance in your path to rewriting your health story. And if that comes from someone who is a life coach or maybe a counselor to help you have a different perspective on things, that might be what you need. Maybe it's someone you need to help you with some personal training. If you're like, I just am intimidated by even getting moving, I've had issues with that. Maybe that's someone you help you with that process. Maybe it's someone to help you look further into nutritional issues of your life, either nutritional labs, or you say, you know what, I really think food has something to do with what's going on. And I tell you, I bet food does have something to do with what's going on with your body. But invite someone else to help you with that journey. Some of you may need to invest a lot in that right now, a lot of time, a lot of effort, depending upon where you are in your health. But if that's something you want help with and you think that you would like to look further into working with a dietitian, I'm open to that. I would love to schedule an appointment with you just to talk one-on-one to see what's going on, to encourage you further, maybe give you some pointers and see, would we be a good fit to work together? And if not, I'll send you on your way to somebody else. But I love to help women rewrite their health stories. And I want you to know that there is hope. And there's a bright horizon out there, and you don't have to succumb to what you thought the end of your story was going to be. I'll have more stories to share in the coming months, and I hope to use this platform to be able to connect with you a little bit further. So if you have questions, want to reach out to me. If you say, hey, Bethany, I'd like to chat a little bit further, I'm going to send an email out at the end of this, and I'll invite you to schedule just a free strategy call with me. We'll talk about 15 to 20 minutes about what's going on specifically with you. And after that, see where it goes. But I want to encourage you to take these 5 steps this year to start rewriting your health story. I hope you have a wonderful 2018. I'm going to close here, but I think we have a few minutes for some questions. If you have any questions, you want to type them in the chat box. You may have something specific or any comments or need some clarification. This was kind of quick, but I appreciate you all hanging in there with me. And let's see. Any questions? I'll try to close out. We may have a recording of this. I don't know. This is kind of a test, so we'll see. I'll send it out if you want to share it with anybody. Or if you know of anyone who is really struggling in this area of saying, hey, I feel like there's nothing I can do right now. I work with a lot of women who have autoimmune diseases, or they struggle with anxiety, digestive issues, fibromyalgia, IBS, IBD, people who thought, you know what, there's just, I don't know what's going to happen to me. But when we can help them realize that there's something that they can do to get the root of what's going on, it's like the lights go off and there's hope on the horizon. So I'd love to be able to extend that to someone else as well. But if not, hope you all have a wonderful end of the day. I look forward to seeing you further this month and throughout this year, maybe as we connect a little bit further. And if you have any specific topics that you'd like me to cover, just let me know. And here's to wholesome.